Diane. Thank you. This is me 10 years ago, and the reason this is the most embarrassing day of my life is not that it looks like I've been attacked by a blow dryer and a can of hairspray. No, it's that I am about to freak out on national television. Health news now. One of the world's most commonly prescribed medications may be providing a big bonus. Researchers report people who take cholesterol-lowering drugs called statins for at least 5 years may also lower their risk for cancer. But it's too early to prescribe statins slowly for cancer production. At this point, I realize I'm helpless, so I bail right in the middle. That does it for news. We're going to go back now to Robin and Charlie.
All right, thanks very much, Dan Harris at the news desk with some of the headlines of the morning. Want to go to Tony Perkins now?
Once the fear subsided, humiliation rushed in. I knew with rock-solid certainty that I had just had a panic attack on national television. So why would I tell you this very embarrassing story? Because that on-air meltdown was the culmination of something that had been building for years, something I never stopped to address. It's something we all battle, whether we have panic attacks or not. Call it the voice in your head.
Hello everyone. I'm really excited about today's video because I'm someone who suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder for many years. This means that anxiety is something I've struggled with for a long time. And the thing about struggling with something for a long time is it has a way of forcing you to figure out what to do about it. Taking medications for anxiety is not the best option. Not only is it the least effective way that you can deal with anxiety, it's very harmful to the body to take these medications. And these medications are addictive. Anytime you take something, a medication, a chemical, your body compensates for the presence of that chemical within your system. So what your brain essentially does is it stops producing the chemicals that you're taking via that pill. So what you'll find when you try to go to get off that pill is that your body is no longer producing those chemicals on its own. There's a lag time between the time that you've stopped taking the medication and the time that your body recompensates for the absence of that chemical. And most people can't make it through that lag time. In other words, living life is just too painful off of the medication because the body hasn't recompensated fast enough for the person to be able to cope with their life. Anxiety is a worldwide problem. It is a problem where our own biology, which was designed to ensure our survival as hunters and gatherers, is sabotaging our bodies and minds. When we feel fear or stress, our body releases cortisol, which is a stress hormone. This cortisol release is part of a fight or flight response. Back in the day, it enabled us to do things like jump out of the way of an attacking predator or a falling rock. In today's world, those kinds of dangers aren't as relevant. But even though they aren't relevant, we still have the same biological reaction to stress. Anytime we perceive danger, our body reacts the same way it would if our survival were at risk and our fight or flight response is triggered. The body releases cortisol when we get cut off on the highway. Our body releases cortisol when we think about being unable to pay the bills on time. Our body releases cortisol when we are approached by our boss. What's more, our body releases cortisol every time we think a fearful thought. Basically, instead of our modern lives being less stressful, they're an absolute minefield of stress-inducing scenarios. This means that cortisol, the stress hormone, is wreaking havoc on us in our day-to-day lives. Elevated cortisol levels doesn't just affect the way we feel emotionally. It interferes with learning and memory. It lowers immune function and bone density. It causes an increase in weight gain, blood pressure, cholesterol, and heart disease. It can trigger other mental illnesses. It increases the likelihood of depression, and it lowers our resiliency. Anyone who suffers with anxiety has a problem with one of our basic human needs, and that basic human need is certainty. What do we mean by certainty? We mean that feeling of internal security, that we know that we can avoid pain and gain pleasure. Those of us who have anxiety don't know that this is true. That basic human need isn't met. Instead, we feel powerless to our own lives. We feel fear relative to our own lives. And that causes our body to trigger the fight or flight response. It causes us to release cortisol. And when that happens, we feel more anxious, So our body releases more cortisol, and that causes us to feel more anxious, which causes us to release more cortisol. And now we're caught in a snowball. We can't stop feeling anxious. Our anxiety snowballs into serious panic attacks because we don't have the ability to meet our own need of certainty. Normally there would be an outlet for this rush of anxiety when the fight or flight response is triggered, such as running away from the perceived threat or screaming and crying, which burns up cortisol within the body. But in today's modern world, there is no obvious course of action for the anxiety we feel. There's no outlet for that energy. So we have to create one, or many. One of the best ways to do this is through exercise on a daily basis. Any aerobic or cardio activity will burn cortisol. It will create an outlet to release the pent-up energy that is associated with the fight or flight response. And 20 to 30 minutes is all you need to engage your body's natural ability to produce endorphins. Endorphins are a bit like naturally occurring opiates. They relax you and induce a feeling of well-being. Eating foods that reduce anxiety is really important. There are foods that increase your anxiety, and there are foods that decrease your anxiety. It's important that you choose a diet that stabilizes your blood sugar. When your blood sugar drops, and it's low, the portion of your brain that's in charge of the fight or flight response is triggered, so you're more likely to feel anxiety throughout your day. Avoid fried foods, caffeine, high glycemic carbohydrates, sugar, and alcoholic beverages. Some foods to include in your diet that have been shown to reduce anxiety for various reasons are seaweed, also called nori, kimchi, whole grains such as brown rice, farro, and quinoa, blueberries, dark chocolate, maca root, vitamin B12 and vitamin B6, omega-3 fatty acids like flaxseed oil, chamomile tea, oolong tea, and oat straw tea, nuts, pumpkin seeds, and edamame. Any kind of meditation, visualization, or relaxation technique, such as yoga, qigong, or tai chi, will lower cortisol levels in the body. So sign up for those classes. Form close-knit human bonds. It's been shown over and over again that when we form connections with other people, we are reducing cortisol within the body. Our parasympathetic nervous system is sedated when we are in close physical contact with other people, when we feel a sense of connection with them. Develop these connections. Humans are a social species. Isolation will increase your anxiety. Seek opportunities to laugh. When you're laughing, your body can't perceive that it is in danger because you're sending it the message that it's safe. So watch that stand-up comedian. Watch those YouTube shows that make you laugh. Seek any kind of fun that you can find. This will significantly reduce your levels of anxiety. It's also really important to get enough sleep. Let yourself get 8 hours a night at least. Sleep is designed to reduce stress levels. When you fall asleep, you are realigning with your non-physical perspective. You're releasing all of the resistance that you carry with you on a daily basis. You're coming into alignment, into a state of allowing, which is the opposite of anxiety. Allow yourself the opportunity to release your resistance in this way. Sleep is essential for those people who suffer from anxiety. Your fight or flight response is triggered when you don't get enough sleep, in the same way that it's triggered by low blood sugar. So it's really important that you let yourself get at least 8 hours a night. Sleep is the opportunity for you to come into alignment, to release all of the resistance that you've built up in your day-to-day life. Take advantage of that opportunity. Release your emotion. One of the best ways to do this is to talk to someone about it. Or if you don't want to do that, to release your emotion by writing or typing it out. I don't want you to judge what's coming up. Whenever you feel anxiety, just sit down with that paper in front of the computer and start typing anything that comes out. All of your worry and stressful thoughts. I want you to just type them as fast as you can possibly type them without judging them. I want you to put down anything, no matter how nonsensical it may seem. Your body needs to release that energy, so let it release that energy. I have an example of a page that I wrote this week to release my own anxiety. So this is what this will sound like. I'm flipping out. I hate my life. What the hell was I thinking? My stomach hurts. I feel like crap. I hate people. I'm not getting anywhere. They won't publish my book. My fan is making me cold. I don't want to move. I can't move. I'm stuck. I hate life. I should quit. I'm the worst parent on earth. I'm not hungry. I hate that everyone expects me to make breakfast. God damn it. I have a session today. I don't want to do it. What the hell am I going to say to them? Kill yourself now because it doesn't get better? Fuck my life. I hate it here. I want to die. I'm too fucked up to do anything good. I want to remind most of you that there will be a lot of swearing in this exercise. This expression process is not the time to be politically correct or polite. I want you to get out anything that you emotionally feel and are struggling with. Listen to music. Deliberately create playlists for yourself that reduce your anxiety. For me, dinner jazz works wonders, as does any music that allows me to bleed emotion. Certain musicians, for me it's Thomas Newman, have the ability to create tones that make you feel like the emotion that is trapped in you is being leached out. Motivating music works well too because it inspires you towards seeking an outlet for your stress. You want to avoid any music that stimulates your nervous system, makes you feel stress, or provokes negative emotion. Breathing exercises works for anxiety. That is, taking a long deep breath in and a long deep breath out, breathing deep into your belly instead of staying up here in shallow breathing where you're just pulling energy into your lungs. Breathing techniques have been shown to reduce cortisol again and again. My anxiety was so bad throughout my life that breathing exercises was a little bit like chipping in a glacier with a spoon. So I prefer to use breathing exercises in conjunction with other exercises instead of purely on its own. But try these breathing exercises. You can find them all over the internet and see how they work for you. The bottom line if you suffer from anxiety is that you have to allow yourself to do what is necessary to make yourself feel good throughout the day. You've got to be deliberate about how you wake up. You've got to be deliberate about how you go to sleep and how you structure your life in between. And this kind of self-care has got to be okay for you. If you suffer from anxiety, you have a highly sensitive system. That doesn't mean that something's wrong with you. Potentially it means that something's right with you and everyone else is just shut down. Take the time to structure your life, to give yourself this TLC. You need to really commit to self-care if you suffer from anxiety. I was one of these people who woke up with such bad anxiety attacks that after an hour or two of struggling with them in the morning, I'd end up suicidal or self-injuring. But I have actually found a routine that works for me perfectly. But I will tell you that even to this day, if I don't do this routine, I still wake up with anxiety attacks. I'm going to share this routine with you today. Keep in mind that the routine that works for you may be different than the one that works for me. The goal, if you suffer from anxiety, is to collect all kinds of tools and all kinds of processes that you can apply throughout your day that work specifically for you to set up your own individual unique routine. Here's mine. Number 1, when I first wake up, before I even open my eyes, I take 8 deep breaths, where I'm holding my breath for the count of 8 at the top. So it looks like this. I do that 8 times. 2, I immediately go get something to eat. Cortisol levels are highest first thing in the morning, which is why so many people who suffer from anxiety wake up with panic attacks. When blood sugar is low, like it is first thing in the morning, it triggers your fight or flight response, so we need to get our blood sugar levels up and quickly. But we don't want to spike our blood sugar. That's just setting ourselves up for failure later in the day. So we want to choose foods that stabilize our blood sugar. I usually choose a handful of almonds and berries, a raw formula meal replacer or protein powder, mixed with coconut milk or almond milk, or a banana with mixed nuts and water. 3. I write in my expression journal. This is the place I allow myself to unleash all my fearful negative thoughts and worries so I have an outlet for that anxious feeling. 4. I write in my gratitude journal. This orients my focus from the thoughts that were causing me to panic to the thoughts that induce a feeling of well-being. It forces me to look for and pay attention to things that make me feel good, and thus begin to feel like the life I'm living might actually be good, and this causes my fight or flight response to shut off. 5. I exercise. I have collected a group of people who feel more motivated to work out when we're together, and now we all go out in the morning and hike or speed walk or do plyometric training or ski together. The connection I feel with them reduces my cortisol levels, and the exercise itself burns off cortisol and introduces endorphins into my bloodstream. 6. When I get back from exercising, I drink 2 8-ounce glasses of water. This allows my liver to rid my body of excess hormones. Your liver is the organ in your body that deals with excess hormones. And remember that cortisol is a hormone. I also keep sipping water throughout the day. And I make sure that this water isn't tap water. I make sure that it's spring water or artesian well water or some kind of water that isn't completely full of chemicals. 7. I let myself be a diva. What do I mean by this? Most of us who suffer from anxiety have perfected the art of forcing ourselves to do things that feel terrible to us emotionally. We end up having breakdowns because our nervous systems perceive danger everywhere we turn. We need to allow ourselves to live a little unconventionally and do unconventional things if it would enable us to feel safer and more relaxed. For example, I get extreme anxiety when I am going anywhere by myself. The traditional model of dealing with fear says that you should force yourself to be alone so that your body will desensitize to it. This forcing your body to desensitize is forcing your body to dissociate, so it's not actually solving any major problem. What it's doing is causing you to shut off to your emotional guidance system. It's pretty much the dumbest thing you can do. It's never self-loving to force yourself to get over something. That is a harsh approach. It is not a gentle approach. And if you take a harsh approach to something that's feeling anxious, what you're doing is you're adding punishment on top of fear. Sounds like a good idea to me. More often than not, all a rough approach does when it comes to fear is cause us to have mental breakdowns. So, I allow myself to take people who I associate with safety and home with me when I go places. Remember that if anyone else thinks you should or shouldn't live in a specific way, it is projection. They are imposing their perspective on your life and asking you to validate their perspective. This is not your job. Your job is to find out what feels most empowering and joyful to you personally, and then allow yourselves to do those things. We do not get upset when someone who is in a wheelchair needs to structure his or her life a little differently in order to have a pleasant experience. We should not get upset with ourselves if our tendency towards anxiety causes us to have to structure our life a little differently in order to have a pleasant experience. If we are all living in alignment, we would all be structuring our lives a little differently according to our own desires and needs. If you suffer from anxiety, it is extremely important that you practice the art of self-loving. This is how it works. If you're a person like me who has an issue with anxiety when you are alone, in the beginning, it's not very loving to yourself to force yourself to go somewhere alone. But eventually you might find that something happens. It no longer feels empowering, it no longer feels self-loving and good for you to be stuck in a situation where you can't go places alone. And that's the time that you can start venturing out and practicing being alone, practicing taking trips alone. And only at that point will that action be self-loving. Only at that point will it be in alignment with your empowerment instead of fuel your anxiety. So you need to be very honest with yourself about where you currently are. And you need only take steps towards self-love. That means the only time you should ever try to solve anything relative to the anxiety you suffer is if it feels self-loving and empowering to do it. 8. I make sure that before I go to bed, I'm in a good vibrational space. That means I watch funny movies. I watch proposal videos on YouTube. I play board games. I cuddle with my communal family members. I do anything that puts me in a good mood so that my focus is not on worry. This is a good time to write in your gratitude journal. Sometimes right before I go to bed, I sit down and I write an entire list of things that I feel grateful for throughout the day. We dream in accordance with what we think about during our day-to-day lives, especially what we think about right before we go to bed. So you don't want to have nightmares based on thinking about things that cause you to feel anxiety right before you go to sleep. And another thing, when you wake up and you rephase with your physical body, you will pick up where you left off. Meaning that if you've been thinking about things that cause you to feel anxious, you will pick up in an anxious state of mind. And that will set your day off already on a very bad foot. So you want to make sure to structure your life, especially relative to before you go to bed, in a way that you're building a platform for success for the day that you're about to lead when you wake up in the morning. 9. I ask someone to rub my feet or tickle my skin softly when I'm laying in bed. This physical contact makes me feel safe, and like all human connection, it reduces cortisol levels in my body. If the idea of physical contact makes you more anxious, you can buy handheld massagers, massager pillows, and massage chairs to help you wind down at the end of the day. 10. I am very deliberate about what I eat. I've structured my diet in a way that stabilizes my blood sugar all day long. I make sure that I eat small snacks throughout the day instead of eating 3 large meals and letting my blood sugar drop in between. I have found that diet is one of the most important keys to controlling my anxiety. So it's really important that you try that out relative to yourself as well. Anxiety is the body reflecting the thoughts that you're thinking. And if you suffer from anxiety, that means that you spend your time thinking thoughts that vibrate in the body at the frequency of fear. Questioning your fearful thoughts and changing them will do more for your anxiety than anything else. When you feel that feeling of anxiety, try to identify the thought or thoughts that you are thinking and question them one by one. Byron Katie developed a process called the work for questioning your beliefs. In my opinion, it's the best process out there for questioning beliefs. And I developed a process for changing beliefs. You can find it on YouTube. I presented in a video titled, How to Change a Belief. Now remember, if you're having a full-blown panic attack, I made a video called How to Stop a Panic Attack. It's on YouTube as well. In this video, I'll lead you through a process that ends panic attacks. Panic attacks are a little bit different than anxiety. They're a more intense extension of anxiety. So if you're having a panic attack, instead of watching this video and utilizing these tools, I want you to go turn to that video and follow along with that process. As I said earlier, people who suffer from anxiety have a difficult time believing that they create their own reality. They don't have a way, yet, of fulfilling the basic human need of certainty. The certainty that they can structure their life to gain pleasure and not experience pain. This means if you suffer from anxiety, it's extremely important that you're deliberate about what you put your focus on. Withdraw your attention from anything that makes you feel powerless or like a victim or like you don't control the circumstances of your life. Don't watch that news station. Don't watch those movies. Don't read those books or articles that make you feel as if the world happens to you. Your life happens to you, and all you can do is cope with it. Instead, place your attention on any material that makes you feel empowered. Place your attention on anything that fills you full of the truth, that you can control the reality that you're living in, that it is absolutely in your hands whether you feel good or feel bad. This sense of empowerment is the opposite vibration of the feeling of anxiety. So try out these tips and techniques and see how they work for you. Have a good week. The subject for today is anxiety attacks. Any of you who have had an anxiety attack know that it is one of the worst sensations you can have, out of any sensation on this planet. If you've had a panic attack, you know it. It's a very surreal experience, and it makes you feel like your life is completely out of your control. So, what is a panic attack and what can we do about it? A panic attack is basically a sudden, intense episode of fear. Fear which is coming in response to a thought which you are thinking, usually a thought which is subconscious rather than conscious. Whatever thought it is that you thought caused your body to react as if it was a life or death situation. Your body was then flooded with chemicals which are associated with fight or flight. Now in that kind of a circumstance, when fear is coming in response to a thought which doesn't necessarily pertain to the experience or your circumstance that you're in, your body is flooded with chemicals like adrenaline. Those chemicals would be normal if you were running through the woods being chased by a bear or were in some other circumstance that was a threat to your life. However, when you have an anxiety attack, most often those chemicals are being flooded through your system out of context, meaning there is no immediate threat that you can perceive to your physical well-being, but your body is registering that there is. The fact that these emotions feel as if they are out of context makes you feel crazy and makes you feel like you're losing control. And that right there is really the hallmark of the panic attack, because the sensation becomes what you start to fear. You start to fear that you're losing control, and you start to fear that you're crazy, for lack of a better word. And so that fear, on top of the previous fear that your body thinks it is in a situation of life or death, causes a level of fear to happen which is debilitating. A lot of times you will fear having other panic attacks as well, because the experience is so intensely horrible. It becomes something which inhibits you in life. You fear having another one to the degree where you may limit what you're doing socially. You structure your life in resistance to the idea of having another anxiety attack, but that fear in and of itself can cause another one to come on. And then we develop things like anxiety or panic disorders. To understand some of the symptoms which might occur to you if you are having a panic attack, I'm going to give you some of these symptoms now. If you're having a panic attack, you may experience a sense of impending doom or danger, the fear of loss, control, or of death. You may begin to experience a very rapid heart rate. You may start to sweat or tremble. You may feel shortness of breath, or you may have a hyperventilation problem. You may get chills or hot flashes. You may feel nauseous. You might get abdominal cramping, chest pain, a headache. You may get dizzy. You may feel faint. You may feel like your throat is closing up on you, like it's super tight and you have trouble swallowing. You may feel numbness in your extremities. Or you may have the feeling of surreality, meaning that you feel like you're detached from yourself. I want to reiterate that your brain has no way of distinguishing between the thoughts you're thinking and the reality which it perceives. This very principle, that your brain has no way of perceiving the difference between thought and reality, can work to your advantage, but in the case of an anxiety attack, it works to your disadvantage, because your brain can't really distinguish whether the thoughts that you are thinking are real or not real. Everything is real to the brain, so if you're thinking a thought which puts your body in panic mode, your brain at that moment doesn't stop itself and say, this is not reality. It perceives itself being in a life or death situation. So it's important for those of us who have anxiety attacks to acknowledge the fact that we're not going crazy. The body and the brain are responding in perfect accordance to what our thoughts are. I personally don't advocate any anti-anxiety medications that are available today, unless a person believes that that is the thing which will cure them, because belief is the trump card for everything. If you feel like anxiety medication is the only thing which can help you release resistance to anxiety, it's not wrong for you to go get them. But in my personal opinion, your emotions are the compass which are leading you through life. They are what's telling you whether the thought you hold resonates with your higher self and that which you truly are, or does not resonate with who you are and what you really should be doing. So why take out the compass? That's what we're doing so often nowadays in our medicinal practices. is we're basically making an enemy of the very thing which is leading us in the correct or incorrect direction. And then we wonder why our lives have become numb, and we wonder why our lives have become less than satisfactory. In order to prevent anxiety attacks, you want to avoid alcohol and avoid stimulants like coffee and like sugar. Some of us have much more sensitive systems than others. I think this is a good thing. To have a very sensitive nervous system means that you have a very, very accurate compass. It's very hard for people who are sensitive to go in the opposite direction of what is right for them. So it's not a good thing to make an enemy of a sensitive system. But it's best if you can gear your choices in life towards a diet and a lifestyle which will pacify your nervous system and nurture your nervous system. So create any kind of grounding environments for your nervous system to flourish so you're not bombarding it. Because your likelihood of having kind of a panic attack or chronic anxiety, if you're overloading it with stimulants, is super, super high. Get regular exercise. I know we all harp on diet, exercise, and sleep, but exercise is really, really good for your nervous system. Joint impact releases chemicals in your brain, which pacify your system. They actually have a calming effect, which is why a lot of people with anxiety disorders are addicted to exercise. Get 8 hours of sleep a day. When you are allowing yourself to go to sleep, you are releasing resistance. You are rejoining your source self-perspective. And in the absence of resistance, well-being and health is allowed to flourish. It will literally cascade naturally through your body. So you're allowing yourself to reset when you allow yourself to sleep enough. Find every way you can to reduce stress in your life. Stress takes a toll on your body. It is basically at the heart of every single disorder and every single disease. If you maintain a life of stress or a focus on situations which make you feel stress, your likelihood for an anxiety attack increases exponentially. The reason is because your body is set up for the specific chemicals that are released within it. What I mean is, if you're a person who chronically feels stress, the brand new cells that are made within your body are made intact with receptor sites, which are specifically designed for the neuropeptides in your body which are associated with stress. And when those receptor sites get denied of chemicals, they start to go into a crave type of situation, where they release all kinds of information about them dying and needing that same kind of chemical. So then you get into this sort of locked-in cycle where you almost need to create stress because your cells are craving the stress chemical. So if you would like to live a stress-free life, you need to start practicing living a life of non-stress to such a degree that new cells within your body that are made come into this existence with new receptor sites which are predisposed towards emotions, the chemical version of the emotions like joy, rather than chemical emotions like stress. In order to stop an anxiety attack, you've got to find a way to get your brain to stop sending the message to your body that it's in a life or death situation. It has to stop sending the emergency message. Fear is your indication that your focus, or something you are paying attention to, is in the exact opposite direction of your desire and your well-being and your higher self. Panic and fear is one of the lowest vibrations. It's one of the most discordant vibrations in our universe. In other words, when you feel fear, your intention, which is always well-being, is colliding with your current thought or action, which holds a different resonance than that entirely. So what do we do about it? Number 1, never force yourself through the action if you're feeling a panic attack. And never try to avoid the sensation. Trying to avoid a panic attack, or trying to ignore a panic attack once it's happened and force yourself through the action the panic attack has occurred because of, is the worst thing you can do. It will not work. So what I want you to do if you're having a panic attack is close your eyes, and I want you to take 5 very deep, deep breaths. Breathe in to the extent where you're filling your lungs entirely up to their full capacity, and then I want you to hold that breath for 8 to 10 seconds, and then release the breath. Remind yourself of what is going on. You can tell yourself, I am having a panic attack. That will help pull your brain out of the catastrophe thinking into the reality which is current, which is, I am having an anxiety attack. That's way better than thinking, I'm literally in a life or death situation. Next, I want you to do something very counterintuitive. I want you to turn your focus in towards all of those sensations. Resisting the sensations will make the sensations worse, because whatever we resist persists. That's the vibrational law within this universe. So we want you to embrace and dive into the emotions and the sensations of the experience of a panic attack. It may be the very last thing you feel like doing, but it will be your key to setting you free of that panic attack. When you embrace and you welcome the sensations of an anxiety attack, it changes your point of power. It's a conscious change of your attitude towards the experience, which then changes the chemicals which are released in your brain. Those sensations are there for a reason. They are meant to be acknowledged, and they must be acknowledged if the experience is to be fully processed. Begin naming what it feels like. For example, you could say, sensation. You feel heavy and stinging. You feel like metal. You feel like you're trying to eat me. I want you to name whatever sensations you are feeling within your body. Then, I want you to take it one step further. I want you to invite the feeling to become worse. Ask it to get more intense. Ask it to feel more. This step removes all remaining resistance that you have to the experience. When the fear is no longer being fed by the mental resistance, it will dissipate. What's better than that is your confidence will begin to kick in. It will tell you, guess what? You're in control of the experience rather than the experience being in control of you, which is how panic attacks get you. They convince you that you're not in control of your own life. Then I want you to ask the sensation what it needs you to know, what it's trying to tell you. Acknowledge those feelings, and acknowledge the fact that you hear them and you feel them and you understand them. Also acknowledge that you have gratitude for them. Gratitude for the fact that your system is giving you totally accurate feedback to the thoughts that you're thinking. Then I want you to look deeply to try to identify what it was that you were focused on before having this panic attack. Once you identify it, you want to look for evidence and proof that undermines that thought that you were thinking. Then you want to begin looking for thoughts which feel better to think. So for example, if I have a fear of going on an airplane and I'm experiencing an anxiety attack as a result of being on an airplane, I want to begin to come up with as many thoughts which both undermine my thoughts which are aligned with the fear of being on an airplane and support the idea that it's an enjoyable experience and a safe experience. For example, I could think thoughts like, planes get safer and safer every single year. Or, pilots are trained specifically for any kind of emergency situation, so I am actually in good hands. Or, all you hear about on the news is the one plane that crashes and not the millions and millions and millions each month that take off with no problem. If you have problems with negative focus chronically, or you consider yourself a worrier, it's a really good idea to bring with you something called a positive aspects journal. What a positive aspects journal is basically a journal where you write down a subject. So if I have a fear of flying, I could write down flying in an airplane. And then you write an entire list of all the positives which you could think about the situation of flying on an airplane. Any thought which makes you feel better. It's a really good idea if you have a chronic worrying problem and you know that you're headed towards a situation like flying, and you've already made the decision that you're going to go through with it, to write down as many things like that as you can possibly focus on, so that during the experience you already have a list to look at, so you can be attuned in the get-go, right out of the gate, with positive emotions and positive sensations, rather than running the risk of spiraling downwards and getting yourself into a situation where you're experiencing a panic attack. It's impossible to have a panic attack when you're focused positively. The reason is that your emotions are your indication of the exact thought which you're holding. So if you hold a positive thought, negative emotions can't occur within your system. The reason that panic attacks feel like they're out of the blue is because we move through life in a first-person perspective. Seldom do we ever step back and really watch the thoughts that we're thinking. So often when we walk into a situation, like getting onto an airplane, we have so many negative thoughts that are rapid firing we have no conscious awareness of. When we get hit by the panic attack, we're going, I don't know where that came from. It just came to me from nowhere, without acknowledging the thoughts which we thought leading up to that experience. Sometimes taking an action, like going someplace or meeting someone, is not in line with our well-being. That will come across as the intuitive feeling of something not being right for you. The problem is, when you have that intuition that something is not entirely right for you, often we start to pile really negative thoughts on top of it, which spiral into fear and spiral into panic attacks. So once you go through these steps that I've outlined, and you pull yourself out of the catastrophic thinking, you can find that place which is your thought stasis. And once you're in that thought stasis, you can distinguish whether that action is correct for you or whether the action is wrong for you. Once you have pulled those thoughts of fear away from the very root, which is usually an action that you're thinking about taking, you can ask yourself, is this action right or is this action wrong for me individually? Is this action in line with my highest good? If the answer is yes, then you want to try to pull your thoughts into vibrational alignment with the decision you've just made. If you make any decision, you want to start thinking thoughts which line up totally with that decision, so you don't experience any opposition and any resistance. If the answer is no, it's not right for me, then don't do it. You cannot expect yourself to do something and just get used to it. It's not going to happen. You can't be living a happy life while simultaneously going upstream all the time in your life. Fearful thoughts can be like weeds which grow around a flower which represents something which is right for you to do or think or be in this life. Sometimes fearful thoughts can be like weeds which grow around a poisonous mushroom. Poisonous mushroom, of course, representing things which are not good for you to do and be and have and all of that in this lifetime. But the fearful thoughts, which are the weeds, have to be cleared away first for you to decide whether that thing which the fearful thoughts are obscuring is right for you or is wrong for you. You never want to take action until you take the step to clear those weeds, clear the fearful thoughts off of whatever subject you have been thinking about. You always know what's right or wrong for you. You always hold the power to focus positively or focus on something which causes you to feel negative emotion. I promise you, as debilitating as panic attacks are, it is totally within your power to be able to stop them when they occur. And they can bring very valuable insight into your life.